When you first started learning English, you probably learned a very basic rule, which is that in an English sentence, the subject and the verb must agree. What does that mean? Let's have a look. So basically, it's quite simple. When you have a singular subject, you have a singular verb. When you have a plural subject, you have a plural verb, okay? And most of the time, that's pretty easy. For example, we say, the chair is black. Singular subject, singular verb, right? Or we say, the chairs are black. Plural subject, plural verb, okay? So most of the time, it's quite easy for you to decide which verb to use with the subject. But sometimes it's not that clear. It's not that obvious. And in this lesson, I'm going to focus on 4 words that sometimes cause students a little bit of confusion in this area of subject-verb agreement. Those 4 words are the pronouns all, most, some, and none. Now, why are these a little bit confusing? Because sometimes they take a singular verb and sometimes they take a plural verb. It depends on the context, depends on the sentence, depends on the situation, okay? But by the end of this lesson, you're going to know 100% which one to use, when to use the singular verb and when to use the plural verb, okay? To get you started thinking about this subject, look at this sentence, okay? All of the equipment is on sale. Is that correct? Or should we say, all of the equipment are on sale? Think about that for a second, and I'll be back to explain. Okay, so let's look at some pairs of sentences to see how this works. The first one is the one that I'd asked you to think about. So the correct answer is, all the equipment is on sale. Okay? Another way we could say this is, all the computers are on sale. Okay? I'm going to explain the principle to you in a minute. In the meantime, try to see if you see any patterns here. Most of the information is true, but most of the reports are true. Okay? Good. Think about that. Let's look at another example. Some of the advice is useful. Some of the ideas are useful. Okay, are you starting to see a little pattern there? Okay, the last one. None of the jewelry is missing. Or none of the rings are missing. So what's going on here? Did you see the pattern? So basically what's happening is, when we have the pronoun and we match it with an uncountable noun, such as equipment, then we use a singular verb, okay? So if you're not sure what an uncountable noun is or what a countable noun is, then of course you can watch my other video where I explain to you exactly what uncountable and countable nouns are. And you can also get our the resource that I've written on this subject, okay? But I'm going to explain to you in short so you understand right now. So, an uncountable noun is something which we cannot count. Right, smart. Like what? For example, sugar. We can't really count, right? All of those grains of sugar, or salt, or flour. That's something uncountable. Also, sometimes when we look at collective words, like furniture, that we consider uncountable because we look at the whole group. But something that's countable is tables, because we can count tables, right? Also, a general word like food, okay? Food is a general word, so we consider it something that we cannot count. But pizzas are countable because you can count the individual pizzas, okay? There is a long list of uncountable nouns, and you should know that. You need to know that in English. So check the resource, and I've classified it for you, okay? But for now, let's look at the patterns. So the equipment is, right, uncountable and singular, but the computers are countable, plural. The information is uncountable, singular. The reports are countable, plural, right? The advice is singular. The ideas are plural. The jewelry is singular. Why? Because jewelry is considered a collective, uncountable word or noun, but the rings are. Okay? So that's the rule that you have to follow. And if you follow that rule with these pronouns, all, most, some, and none, then you will always be right. And why is it important? Because this mistake, subject-verb agreement, is a very basic mistake. And if you make that kind of mistake, it's really going to bring down your score if you're doing an exam like the IELTS or a TOEFL or any English exam. And also if you use this kind of language or you make this kind of mistake in your business writing, it doesn't look good for your employer or for a client. Okay? So let's practice a little bit more now to make sure that you've really got it. All right, so let's practice what we've learned, okay? So what I would like you to do is, while we're doing these sentences, decide whether to use the verb was or were. Was, of course, is the singular, and were is the plural. It's the verb to be, but of course it's in the past, just to change things a little bit. Because we don't only have to use the verb to be, we can use any verb. I'm just using this one to make it simpler for you to see the difference between the singular and the plural. Okay? So let's give it a go. Number 1. Most of the vocabulary was easy, or most of the vocabulary were easy. What should it be? Most of the vocabulary was easy. Vocabulary is considered one of those collective, uncountable words, okay? And therefore we use the singular. If it said most of the words, then it would be were easy. Most of the words were easy. Good. Next, all of the suitcases, blank, heavy. What should it be? Was or were? All of the suitcases were heavy, because suitcases is a countable noun. If it said all of the luggage, then we have to say was heavy. All the luggage was heavy. Luggage is considered an uncountable noun, all right? I know it can be a little bit annoying, but once you look at some of the examples and you sort of really put them into your mind, it'll come much more easily, okay? I promise you. Next, some of the news, blank, disturbing. Was or were? Some of the news was disturbing. Okay, now you're saying, but Rebecca, there's an S there. And when there's an S, I notice it's usually plural. Yes, you're 100% right. Usually it is, but not always, like in words like the news. Okay? News is considered singular. It's uncountable. All right? So therefore we use the singular. But if it said some of the reports were disturbing, okay, then it would be plural. All right? You got it. Next, number 4. None of the people, blank, hurt. Was or were? None of the people were hurt. Okay, now what happened this time? This one is plural and there's no S. Okay, this one was singular and it had an S. This one, plural, no S. Sometimes English is funny, right? We know that. So this is a plural word, okay? But if he said, yeah, okay, it's plural. That's all. All right, number 5. Some of the bands, blank, excellent. Bands like rock bands, okay? Music groups. Some of the bands, yes, were excellent, okay? Bands, here it's a regular plural word. Next, here we could say, for example, some of the music. If we said some of the music, it's an uncountable. So then it would be some of the music was excellent. Okay, good. Next, most of the training, blank, helpful. Was, were, okay? This is uncountable. So when we have uncountable, what do we use? The singular. Most of the training was helpful. Very good. But if we said here, most of the courses were helpful, okay? Courses would be countable. And then plural. Next, all the developments, blank, positive, was or were. All the developments were positive, okay? This is a regular plural word, so we need a plural verb, all right? If we said, for example, all the progress or all the progress was positive, that's an uncountable word, okay? And the last one, none of the homework, blank, difficult. None of the homework, what should it be? Was difficult, okay? So homework is another uncountable noun, okay? None of the homework was difficult, but for example, none of the math problems were difficult, okay? So you have to change it according to this noun, whether this noun is uncountable or countable, all right? Now, you spend time, you watch this video, and you want to get this once and for all. You don't want to keep on learning this again and again. So if you want to master it once and for all, do a few things, okay? First of all, make sure that you understand clearly what countable and uncountable nouns are, right? And if you have any uncertainty, which is possible because it can be a little bit confusing, go and watch that lesson of mine on countable and uncountable nouns. Then go to our website, do a quiz on this so you can get some more practice, okay? Practice makes you much better, okay? Practice will really take you forward. Get that resource on countable and uncountable nouns. Make your own sentences. Maybe take some of those examples from there and write some sentences in your comments using these pronouns and using these uncountable and countable nouns, okay? You can do it. It's really not that complicated, but you need to practice it so that your time watching this video was really worthwhile, okay? And last of all, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can keep on getting lots of other lessons that will help you learn English much more quickly and effectively, okay? Thanks very much for watching and all the best with your English. Bye for now.